Hi, I'm Virginia from Right Clinic, and here with me today is Matt Jurga, and he's going to tell us everything about what he does in a CRO. And so, thank you so much for coming on today, Matt.
Well, thank you for having me here. It was very exciting. It took us a while actually to make this happen, but yes, finally.
Yes, we got here finally with a good connection. So, Matt is a regulatory medical writer and he works for Fortrea, which is a CRO. So, Matt, tell us more about what a CRO is and what does a regulatory writer do?
Okay, so let's start with regulatory medical writing. Um, Essentially, in my role, what I do is I write protocols for clinical trials where we test drugs in humans for the very first time. So my role is about, delivering new drugs to patients, life-changing drugs. And that is what is so exciting about this. And then once the clinical trial is done, when we gather all the data, I look at all of the safety and efficacy of the drug, and then I write a report, and then this report will go to FDA in the US or other health authorities. So this is what regular medical writers do. Regulatory medical writers do. What a CRO is a contract research organization. So essentially, our clients are biotech and pharma, and they come with the new exciting drugs that they want to test in humans for the first time, right? And then we have our own clinics, and we run these trials from the beginning to the end. It's a pretty much end to from the start to the end type of service. And once everything is done, we send them the documents, and then they submit them to FDA or other bodies. So this is what we do.
Amazing. I really like how concise that was because I think you do much more than that, but you're kind of giving a kind of overview. And so I really appreciate you taking the time to explain what you do. So, what do you enjoy the most about your job?
Oh, it's just how exciting it is, when clients come with new drugs for diseases that sometimes they are rare diseases, with basically no drugs available for these patients. Sometimes we're talking about, much more common diseases like cancer, for example. And it's just exciting to see the future essentially. What drugs are in the pipeline right now, and what is going to be available to patients in hopefully a few years' time, and how we can improve the quality of our lives really. And it's just brilliant to be part of this and see them in a few years' time these drugs out there in the market actually helping people. It's brilliant. Yeah, I love it.
I can see that you're really passionate about being a regulatory medical writer, and it's really nice to see that because I know that our audience is really interested in regulatory medical writing. So, if you could turn back time, what would you do differently to get into regulatory medical writing?
Well, I would just, join Fortrea sooner essentially and start working on these clinical trials sooner if I could. I think that would be great. But what helps me to get there is when I was a postdoc, I was also working in a tissue bank. So I was, working with laws and regulations, and I had clients and, standard operating procedures and all of this. So this was really my first encounter, let's call it, with sort of biology or medicine and law. And yeah, I really liked it, but then I realized actually, what, I really enjoy writing, I enjoy analyzing data. And that's why I decided that regulatory medical writing would be a perfect fit for me.
So, if there was someone who didn't have your qualifications, because you are a postdoc, what would you say is the kind of minimum requirement, and what should they work towards in order to get into regulatory medical writing?
Well, I think obviously you need to uh, have a qualification in a biology-related field. It can't even be bachelor's. That's fine. But I would say network. Talk to people who are regulatory medical writers. Get to know what the field is about, what is required, what is our day-to-day like, and then apply for the jobs. A lot of people try directly, and they succeed. But I'm not going to lie. The majority of people who succeed when applying directly already have masters or PhDs. People with bachelors more often get themselves lab-based jobs in industry within CROs. So, for example, you could be working in one of our labs in Fortrea for a couple of years, and then you can make a lateral internal move into medical writing department. So there are two ways about it. Some people come directly, but they usually have a little bit more experience. Others, move within the company.
Amazing. Those are two really great strategies. Thank you for sharing those. I'm sure the audience will really appreciate that. So, in terms of your work, you said when we were having an earlier conversation that you really wanted to talk about the impact on patients as a regulatory writer. So, do you want to talk a bit more about how your work helps patients?
Well, especially when you're running late phase studies. So, when we are trying the drugs on the actual patient populations, and then you get the results out of these trials, and you can see that these drugs are actually making a real difference to these people. They're improving their outcomes. And you are basically one of the very first few people to see that these drugs work, that they do what they're supposed to do. And then, you describe these results, send them to the client, they send it to FDA, and you watch TV, a few months later or whatnot, and suddenly you hear about this drug on TV, that, there's a new anti-cancer or whatever drug that's been released, and you were one of the people who worked on it. So that's really, really nice.
That's really great. I think that's better than working on the next iPhone. I think you having a real impact. So, what would you say is next on the horizon for you? Should people connect with you, follow you on LinkedIn? How can people learn more about regulatory medical writing, and can they learn from you?
Oh yeah, definitely. People can find me on LinkedIn. Just use my name, my surname, and yeah, I'm happy to give advice, connect, and I think it's really important to network, and it's really important to fully understand what we do and how much data we actually analyze, and then how much we write, and is it more creative writing, or is it less creative and more structured writing? What it is exactly that we do on a day-to-day basis. So absolutely, feel as a message to everyone, feel free to connect. And what's the future for me? Well, I think just more exciting studies and further development as a medical writer. And hopefully, I'll get to see more drugs changing people's lives in the near future.
Amazing. So, could you give me, just as a final note, what your kind of lifestyle is like? What's a typical day for you? Do you work from home, or do you go into the office 5 days a week? Do you work 9 to 5? Do you travel? What's your kind of work cycle like?
Right. So I go to our office, to our clinic, once a week. But it's not mandatory. I basically go because I want to see people. I could work remotely all the time, and I have a lot of team members who work from home all the time because maybe they just don't fancy coming to the clinic, or they simply live too far away, which is fine. So that's very flexible, and I work from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. But the work is very flexible essentially because being a global company, I work with team members who are based from Sydney or Japan to California. So we span lots of time zones. And for example, 1 week I might want to actually start work a little bit later because I'm going to have a call with a colleague in California, which is absolutely fine. So the work does require that sort of flexibility. But if you really want to work 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., that's also fine. That's doable. But all in all, it is a very much a global world, and clients based everywhere, colleagues based everywhere. So just need to pay attention to all of that. But I would say I never work more than my designated 37.5 hours a week.
That's amazing. I think that's a really insightful response, because a lot of people think, oh, if you go into regulatory, you have to be in an office, you have to do this, you have to do that. So it's nice to hear from someone who does it that you can have a flexible kind of work life cycle. So thank you for sharing that. Is there anything else that you want to share with our audience today?
No, probably not. Just network and keep applying, and I'm sure you'll do great.
Amazing. Thank you for the encouragement, and thank you to the audience for watching or listening today. And we will see you at the next episode. And make sure to thank Matt for everything that he shared with us today. And I hope you found this episode helpful. See you next time. Bye.
Take care. Bye.